Annabelle didn't need to hear Tinsel whisper, "Bow, you muckins," nor to see the circlet of gold in the woman's silver hair to know that this was the potentate. Everything about her said so. Her posture, her eyes, her expression. Mrs. Holmes was a fine lady, but in all her furs and diamonds, she would have looked like a prize pig next to a lioness if she had sat next to the potentate. This was royalty of a style Annabelle had never dreamed of. On reflection, the potentate's title didn't seem too long for her at all. Annabelle curtsied in midair, and at once toppled to the floor. The potentate smiled. "My compliments on your precise economy with the pixie dust, Tinsel." "We are doing our best, your majesty." Annabelle picked herself up, dusted her knees, and tried to curtsy again, though she almost stumbled over the sound of Tinsel's stiff introduction. "Her Majesty, Gloria, Grand Dame, Highborn of the Land of Youth, Potentate of Fairy, Marchioness of Flowery Border, etc. Your Majesty, this is Annabelle Teresa Silvers of Human Earth, hereafter by your Majesty's pleasure to be known as Alvina P. Appleblossom, a fairy." The potentate nodded. "Do you know why you are here, child?" Shutting her eyes and hoping the answer was not to scrub the battlements of pigeon droppings, Annabelle curtsied again. "No, ma'am, your Majesty. We are recruiting from the human world for an important mission." Annabelle's eyes lit, but as she stared upward, the potentate snapped her fingers. Lights flashed, there was a crack like thunder, and in an instant she found herself standing next to a broad table in a much larger room. Maps and swords hung from the walls. Two rusted and battered suits of armor stood stoic on either side of a large door, and a map of fairy stretched from end to end of the great table running the length of the room. The aroma of shortbread cookie permeated the hall, drawing Annabelle's gaze to a plate of the most beautiful cookies she had ever seen, piled high on a platter at the potentate's elbow. Gesturing to the map, the potentate commanded, "Consider this the most important geography lesson of your life. Now look." Something powerful tore Annabelle's longing gaze away from the cookies. It must have been strong magic to pull her gaze from those cookies, and toward the direction the potentate had gestured. At the map's center, a bold white tree spread its branches upward, and she could see that the castle and the tree were one and the same. A weird wood surrounded the kingdom, complete with its suspicious foliage and strange creeping things. Further out blazed the Valley of Fire, and little plumes of smoke floated up above the valley. Mountains rose up in three-dimensional peaks to the north and to the east and west. The weather gathered around them with tiny sparks of lightning flashing and rainstorms pouring out from the wispy clouds of vapor hanging over the map. It was a stunning view, and Annabelle had the impression that it was more than representational, but also a kind of scrying glass into what was actually going on at any given time within the kingdom and also beyond. Annabelle followed the potentate's gilded fingernail, which pointed further east. "Can you read?" Annabelle nodded and pronounced the word written between the potentate's fingernail and an island chain just off the coast of Fairy. "Never." "Precisely. Have you heard of it?" It wouldn't be good to seem ignorant, though she knew little about fairy tales. "Yes. Peter Pan's fame reaches all the way to Shelterbridge." The potentate sniffed. "Infamy, more like. Pan is a hoodlum and a rabble-rouser." Annabelle bit her tongue. The potentate pointed again. "Never is an autonomous region." She traced a dotted line running between the island and the coast of Fairy, then tapped the island for emphasis. "My father gifted it to our cousins the Pixies to govern as they pleased years ago. We didn't mind when they allowed a few human guests to enter, here and there. We are gracious here in Fairy, as you will see." Annabelle's stomach growled, and she glanced again at the cookies. They must be for eating. Why else would they be on the table? She reached to grasp a cookie from the platter, but static sprang from the plate to her fingernails, landing her with a strong shock. Annabelle winced and brought a wounded hand to her mouth. We love guests. We adore them. Sometimes we keep them forever. But unfortunately, as it appears to us, Never is no longer thriving. Annabelle frowned at the now red burn on her right hand. Couldn't you just banish the lost toys? Shh! Came a shocked remonstrance from Tinsel. No, fairly asked, the potentate said. The boys have lived in Never now for what humans would call generations. That said, the lost boys have changed it. The pixie bush hasn't been seen in ages. The flora and fauna are behaving very badly, and we fear they are picking up bad habits from ill-mannered humans. Unfortunately, when I mentioned my concern, some of my cousins took offense, and our relations with the pixies remain strained. The potentate focused her gaze narrowly on Annabelle. What would you do if you were me? Annabelle started. She hadn't expected such a question, and she stammered. I don't think I know. I don't think I have enough information to know what I would do. The potentate clapped her hands together with a startling crack. Exactly. I need information. I need insight into the plans and intentions of the pixies toward my own people, and what they might do to deepen the breach between us. Under the circumstances, I think a clandestine approach best. Annabelle gasped. I didn't know you had spies in Fairy. The potentate raised one eyebrow. All monarchs have spies. Why not recruit one of the lost boys? Why recruit an outsider with no presence in Never at all? Tinsel gasped again and drew her finger across her throat as if to silence Annabelle. But the potentate kept her temper. Because, Miss Appleblossom, the lost boys are contemptuous liars. They concoct the most ridiculous stories about mad ants and armies rising up in rebellion. Annabelle swallowed. Weren't ants always in armies? The potentate stood up from the table. Enough questions. If we are to proceed, we must have a test. Annabelle's throat tightened and she trembled. I can't. The potentate frowned. What did you say? I can't take an exam. Annabelle hadn't set foot in a schoolroom for almost 3 years, and her face heated, remembering Mrs. Brutankle's cruel dismissal. I'm too ignorant. The potentate gestured toward Tinsel. Are you quite certain she's the one? Quite, Your Majesty. He said she would never lose her nerve. Annabelle blinked in confusion. Who said I would never lose my nerve? Master Silvers, of course. Master Silvers? My father? You knew my father? Miss Appleblossom. No magician of any merit confines himself to one world, and your father possessed great merit. But if you know him, then you also know he's innocent, and who's really to blame. The potentate cleared her throat. I might be able to find out who's to blame, but it's so difficult to recruit some good spies these days. She gave Annabelle a pointed look. Some even claim to be, what was it you called yourself? Too ignorant. Annabelle balled her fists. If there was even a chance that she could find out what happened, she had to try. I'll take the exam. You think you are capable of doing this job? Yes. Annabelle set her teeth in her jaw. She might not be capable of doing this job for the potentate. But for her father, that was a different story.